Ciao, everyone, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. Our final episode of the year showcases the southeast corner of the region of Tuscany known as the Val d'Orcia. I always refer to this area as quintessential Tuscany, as it is made up of charming medieval hill towns and rolling hills dotted with cypress trees, farmhouses, vineyards, and olive groves. We've been in love with this area of Tuscany for over 25 years, so it was clear to us that we had to test out living in the Val d'Orcia as part of our new life in Italy. We spent a month living in Montepulciano and exploring a lot of the Val d'Orcia and absolutely loved it. We can't wait to tell you about our experience, so let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to episode number 10. We've hit the double digits.
Yoo-hoo!
I'm your host, Tanya, and I'm here with Davide, also known as my co-host and producer.
Buongiorno or buonasera, depending when you're listening to this.
Today's episode will be all about the Val d'Orcia, our second home of 3 trial homes in the region of Tuscany. To help you visualize it, the Val d'Orcia is a valley in the southeast corner of Tuscany. It's south of the city of Siena and stretches from Montepulciano in the west to Montepulciano in the east and all the way down to Monte Amiata. It's a rich green valley that encompasses the Orcia River from which it derives its name. The entire area is a protected World Heritage Site by UNESCO and is absolutely beautiful.
We've been in love with Tuscany and the Val d'Orcia for many, many years, right, Tanya? And we'll tell you why we loved living here for a month. But first, let's provide a quick update on our lives here in Italy. What have we been doing since our last episode, Tanya?
It's been a really busy couple of weeks, so it might not be so quick.
Well, tell everyone what's been going on.
Well, first I have to say I was a little bummed about the status of many things during our last report out. But I'm happy to report now that we've had a number of successes in the past couple of weeks. First, our container arrived in Calabria.
Finalmente! Hallelujah! Well, we expected to have everything mid-October. And while it docked in Gioia Tauro on October 23rd, it didn't clear customs until November 14th. And then they had some trouble finding people to deliver that stuff to our residency. And they didn't deliver to us until November 20th.
But we got it. It was so awesome. It felt like Christmas came early for me. I was so happy to be reunited with our things, especially my pillow. Then, the next day, we picked up our car.
Yes, that was another win. And we had to figure out how to get car insurance. That was another hurdle. And then we had to pay for it. But luckily, we had our new bank account and we successfully transferred funds from our US bank account to the new Italian bank account. So finally,
yes,
we had our car in our hands.
A number of wins in that. And lastly, we may have found an apartment to rent and we are in the midst of discussions.
Yes, we're still in negotiations. So let's wait to talk about that until the deal is sealed.
Okay, sounds good. So overall, we've had a number of wins. It entailed another quick trip to Calabria, but we have been able to enjoy a full week in our current home of Castiglione Fiorentino. And we've done lots of hiking in the area and a little exploring.
Yeah, and well, we celebrated Thanksgiving. We learned that of a restaurant back in Montepulciano that they were hosting a Thanksgiving lunch. And we were actually very fortunate to be able to reserve the last 2 spots. So it was good. So tell a little bit what we found on that lunch, Tanya.
It was so good. Yeah, I was so impressed. It was actually a very traditional buffet, but with some lovely Italian side dishes like eggplant parmigiana, lasagna, and amazing roasted local vegetables. We were spoiled. It was hard to be away from family in the US, but this definitely helped. And then we were able to FaceTime everyone afterwards.
Well, what else have we done, Tanya?
Well, we went truffle hunting and we fit in a couple of day trips to Orvieto in Umbria and Arezzo.
So what did you think of the truffle hunting?
It was enjoyable, but it was essentially walking in the woods with dogs. So, they did all the work and maybe took some of the fun out of it.
Yes.
And while it was very pretty in the woods, my overall assessment was I had a good time, but it might be hard to prioritize truffle hunting over other activities if time was limited.
Yeah, I think it might be fun with kids or people that really love dogs. They might enjoy it better than what we did. So
it was a nice day. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it. It's just, and I very much loved the lunch afterwards with the truffles.
Yeah, that was yum yum.
But I just want to kind of paint the picture for everybody. It is walking in the woods, following dogs that are running around, sniffing the ground.
All right. Well, we haven't been to Orvieto in Umbria before. And so we decided to go. So we took the train. And when we arrived in Orvieto, they have a funiculare, which is like a cable train that brings you up to the city because Orvieto is up on a hill. And so I really like the city. It's a nice size. It had a lot of restaurants and shops. You like that, right, Tanya? You did some of that?
It was Black Friday.
Yeah. And then also the Duomo was beautiful.
It was very grand. And overall, I really liked Orvieto as well. I mean, the surrounding area is beautiful. The city is big, but not too big. It would be a great day trip from Rome or Tuscany. And it's a nice place to live, actually, I think.
Yeah. Okay, then what else did we do? We went to Arezzo to see the Christmas market.
Yes, I couldn't wait to get into the holiday vibe, and it was a perfect way to kick off the season. Arezzo does such a really nice job. There were tons of light displays, huts selling local products, and rides and events for children. It was beautiful, and I had my first Italian hot chocolate.
A little bit different, huh?
Yes, it's thicker for sure and very, very good. Like really drinking melted chocolate. So I'm going to be having more of that.
Well, let's see, right? Well, wow, you were right. Not such a quick update. We had a lot going on, but now let's transition to our topic of the week, our life in the Val d'Orcia. How should we do this, Tanya?
Well, similar to how we covered our time in Pistoia, let's go through it in the following structure. Let's begin with a little overview and history of the Val d'Orcia area.
Okay.
Then we'll talk about the key attractions within the valley and what the area has to offer tourists. And we'll finish with a discussion about our experience living in Montepulciano on the eastern edge of the Val d'Orcia. Does that work for you?
Well, let's dive in.
Okay, let's start with a brief overview of the region, and then you can provide some historical insights.
Of course.
I'm such a visual person, so I like to start by painting a mental picture for everybody. So first, reflect back on all of the coffee table books, calendars, and postcards you've ever seen of Tuscany. Chances are many of those photos were taken in the Val d'Orcia. Again, this is the area south of Siena. There is Montalcino on the western edge, Montepulciano on the eastern edge, and it also includes the area of land south to Monte Amiata. It's an area that is the epitome of what Tuscany is known for and admired for, the rolling hills, either green or brown, depending on the season, covered with vineyards, olive groves, wheat, sunflowers, or my favorite, poppies.
I papaveri.
It has winding roads lined with tall, majestic cypress trees, offering protection to the many stone farmhouses and wineries. And at the top of the highest points, picture quaint medieval villages with grand fortresses, castles, and churches. And finally, more towards the south, imagine a majestic mountain, Monte Amiata, a large natural preserve of forests and a winding river, the Orcia. It's a magical area, and it's no wonder that it was made a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2004. And according to the UNESCO, the Valdorcia Park is a perfect combination of art and landscape, geographical space and ecosystem, an expression of wonderful natural features and historical evidence. So can you picture it yet?
Hang on, I'm still dreaming. Okay. So now let me talk to you about the history a little bit. But before I do that, I'm just going to disclose it. We found some really nice guides at the shop. So I'm going to read off of those guides so that I don't want to take credit. So anyway,
These are your key takeaways.
Yes. So I'm just going to start. So this landscape began to take shape about 5 million years ago after a significant drop in sea level. Valdorcia formed on the side of the clay and sandy bottom of a once existing water kingdom.
Hey, now that you've said that, we went to a restaurant in Montepulciano that was dug into the caves dug into the cliff that now have become caves.
Yes.
And the owner of the restaurant took us down there and was pointing out all of the fossils and seashells in the walls. So that was, really cool to see, that this area was below sea level and was part of the ocean.
And he also showed us the 2 volcanic eruptions in between. And in between of those volcanic eruptions, I think he said, 70 million years?
Yes.
Yes. So
I couldn't even imagine that much time.
Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of volcanic eruptions, later volcanic eruptions from Radicofani and Amiata transformed the hardened lava into dark volcanic rocks. That's what we were just talking about. The land surface finally took its shape after erosion processes, creating the bed of the Orcha River.
Okay, well, so that's a great overview of the geographical history. How about the people?
So the area's first inhabitants were the Etruscans from the 9th to the 1st century BC, and they created a strong agricultural and mineral economy and traded with the Greeks. There are a lot of Etruscan sites to explore and artifacts to be found in local museums. In ancient times, Valdorcia played a significant role as the famous Cassia Road, the Via Cassia, passed along it, connecting Rome with the northern part of the country, as we learned in our episode 7, Pistoia, for people that want to go back to it. It connected Florence, Pistoia, and Lucca until it connected to Via Aurelia near Pisa. This route, spanning 130 kilometers, maintained its commercial, political, and religious significance up to the Middle Ages. Continuous streams of merchants, pilgrims enriched the nearby communities and strengthened their positions.
So then what happened next?
So, the Valdorcia started to be transformed before the year of the first millennial, AD, when another important road called the Via Francigena, named after the Franks, where crusaders, pilgrims, and merchants who traveled along it over the centuries, connecting England in Dover, France, and northern Italy with Rome. So, small parishes and abbeys were founded along the route, then inns, hostels, castles, and fortified villages. One town called Buon Convento, which means good convent, was a main stop for these travelers. The Via Francigena was a big influence on the development of Siena, which controlled the Valdorcia from the 13th century. In the second half of the 16th century, the lands of Valdorcia were already part of the Florentine Republic and primarily used for agricultural purposes. Siena merchants bought land and created farmsteads that were not only profitable, but also beautiful.
Yes, and I'm actually going to chime in here because I was reading about that and I was really intrigued to learn that for the first time in Europe, the landscape was deliberately modeled with an aim that was aesthetic as well. So, with the Renaissance period, they really embraced this idea of having, a relationship between humans and nature. And they made a deliberate point to set up the farms and the homes in such a way that they were productive, but also beautiful. And It's when they introduced, sharecropping system. They had small woods and hedges were left in between the plots of land. The farms were put in pretty locations. Roads were drawn and cypresses were planted. So, it really impressed me that was intentional and that they made a focus of investing in the local farms and villages with the profits.
Yeah. Well, after the end of the Republic of Siena in the 16th century and the progressive loss of importance of the Via Francigena, a period of impoverishment started that would last until the 20th century. Okay, further on. From the mid-20th century, Valdorcia experienced a new wave of economic and cultural growth, becoming a popular destination for ecotourism lovers. Preserving the region's aesthetics became a central and priority issue for nearby cities. The developments in the 13th to 15th centuries have been well preserved and is largely what we will see today in the remaining walls, palaces, and churches. So, Tanya, that wraps it up a little bit, right? So now that we know a little bit about Valdorcia's past, tell us about the region has to offer to tourists.
Well, I think you kind of hit on a little bit of it at the end there that, since the mid-20th century, they've really been focusing on tourism in the area and making an effort to preserve all of their hill towns and their palaces and churches. So the Valdorcia has so much to offer tourists. And, we've been visiting here since about the year 2000, like this particular area. And to be honest, I think we've still only experienced a fraction of what it has to offer. And our past trips have been mainly day trips. We either stopped on our drive from Rome, up to Siena or the Chianti region, or we made day trips from our home base in northern Tuscany. And reflecting on that, it's probably what most people have time to do, especially if they want to see other parts of Tuscany or Italy. So what I want to point out, I guess, first is that the main attraction of the Valdorcia is hands down its scenery.
Yes.
And because it captures the core essence of Tuscany's famous landscape, I do encourage most of my clients to visit the area, if only as a day trip. It's enough time to drive leisurely through the landscape, stop in awe at the many beautiful viewpoints, and take a million photos. You can have lunch at a winery or a farm and stop into a couple of towns for a quick look-see, a little shopping, and some wine tasting at the many wine stores. So now, of course, it's just enough to give you a quick glimpse into what is available, and you will be left with wanting more. And that's partly what prompted us to pick Montepulciano as our second place to try out on our search for our future home. Because even if it didn't turn out to be the best place to live, we thought it would be great to have that extra time to really explore the area at a slower pace and learn more things about it that we could share with you and our clients.
Okay, so let's cover the three main towns and share the highlights. Let's start with Montepulciano.
Okay, so this is where we were based. So we've had the most time to be exploring the city of Montepulciano. It's on the eastern edge of the Valdorcia, and it's a medieval hill town with about 13,000 residents. It's the largest of the three towns we're going to cover and definitely the most vertical. It was great exercise on our walks into town.
My legs still hurt, by the way. So,
well, we've got more hills around here to get in shape.
I know.
So Montepulciano was first inhabited by the Etruscans back in the 4th century, as you were mentioning, and they left behind many caves and structures. But as you mentioned also, the current city dates back to about 14th century AD. The city has a main street lined with a ton of fun shops and restaurants, many piazzas, a couple of museums, and lots of churches. And similar to all the towns, one of Montepulciano's key attractions is the views that it offers. The Val di Chiana to the northeast, and the Valdorcia to the south and west. And if you are a Twilight movie fan, you may recall the scene from the New Moon episode or movie where they drive up the main street and then Bella gets out and finishes the climb into the main square called Piazza Grande. While there is a real Volterra, the city named in the movie, the scenes were actually shot in Montepulciano, as well as many other movies such as Under the Tuscan Sun. So it's gotten a lot of screen time. The Piazza Grande is a beautiful and charming square where the main government building, the Palazzo Comunale, is located along with the Duomo and other grand palaces. All are worth exploring.
Yes.
And the piazza also has the Well of the Griffi and the lions. Now, we've posed for a number of family photos here, and one of my cherished memories was when our son Luca, who was like a year and a half old at the time, decided to interrupt a game of soccer being played there by some young boys.
That was funny, yes. And the old ladies always yelling to the other kids, let the little kid play.
Yes, he just wanted their ball so badly.
Yeah.
It was cute.
It was cute.
So it's the perfect place to hang out at the corner bar with a drink or a gelato.
Or just grab a sandwich at the La Schiaccia dell'Opio and find a bench with a view.
Yes. Oh my God, that sandwich is really, I think, the best sandwich I've eaten in Tuscany since we've been here.
Better than Antico Vinaio from Florence.
It was, but marginally, but it was so good. Like, I can't wait to go back.
Let me tell you about the sandwich a little bit, because it is a sandwich, but the bread is called schiacciata, which is like a flat bread. And yeah, so it's so yummy.
It was. I want more. So also in this Piazza Grande, it houses the town's main events. So right now there is the Christmas market going on. We recently climbed the tower of the Palazzo Comunale, and I can't believe we didn't think to do it before now. It offers such amazing 360 views of both valleys. It's literally the highest point in town.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Well, another great thing to do in Montepulciano is to drink some wine. So Montepulciano is known for the two wines, which is the Nobile di Montepulciano and the Rosso di Montepulciano. They also produce Vin Santo, which is a dessert wine, right? So that you can enjoy with some cantucci,
yes,
the typical
yummy
Tuscan cookies. So what else, Tanya?
Well, you can do wine tasting at the many, many enotecas or wine bars throughout town. But our favorites are actually at the top of the town where they have underground wine cellars that you can explore. So the three main ones are Contucci, Tolosa, and De Ricci. All are great and have wonderful wines, but De Ricci offers the most beautiful underground cellars with high vaulted ceilings carved into the stone, like underground cathedrals.
Yeah, another great place for views and wine is the fortress on top of the city. You can pour your own wine tasting. You can pick your own wines. You can also order a tagliere, like a charcuterie board, and then sit down outside on one of the tables and enjoy the view.
It's beautiful. It was really a hidden gem to find.
Yeah.
And of course, there are many medieval churches with historical art to explore throughout the city, as well as a few museums. There's the Civic Museum for Etruscan artifacts and the Museum of Torture, which speaks for itself. Just outside of Montepulciano, there are more churches to explore, the key one being the Temple of San Biagio. It's just magnificent and is truly a landmark of the city and adorns many of our photos taken from inside the city as well as from the countryside nearby. Close up, it's enormous. And there is a wonderful restaurant just across from it called La Grotta. So a final point to share about Montepulciano is its annual festival on the last Sunday of August, the Bravio delle Botti. It's an 8-day event where the different contrade, or neighborhoods, organize stands and dinners, and the grand event is a competition where each neighborhood has two rollers that roll an 80-kilogram barrel, wine barrel, up the streets to the Piazza Grande.
Mine, that's like 175 pounds.
Up like 10 to 15% grade.
Just without the barrel walking up is a workout. So
I can only imagine. But next year, I'm going to make a point to come watch this.
Okay, let's move on. Pienza.
Okay, let's move west. About 20 minutes from Montepulciano, Pienza is a much smaller city with only a population of 2,500 people. Its claim to fame is concentrated in the space of 6 years, from 1458 to 1464, during the papacy of Pius II, Enea Silvio Piccolomini.
Piccolomini.
I like that.
Piccolomini, which means piccolo means small, and mini is mini. It's mini.
Oh, gosh. Well, anyway, the mini-me was elected pope and named Pius II, and he commissioned the Florentine architect Bernardo Rosolino to turn his native village, which was then called Corsignano, into a new city that they named Pienza, the city of Pius. Their goal was to build the perfect Renaissance city with an urban layout. a main street down the middle and many side streets and a lot of bright open spaces. I mean, it's really a charming little town.
Yes.
And this project led to the construction of the cathedral, the Palazzo Piccolomini, and a lot of other palaces for the cardinals. And so in such a short period of time, they really put a big impression into this town of what we're still seeing today. So, after the Pope died in 1464, the city went back to just being a normal country village, but it was made a UNESCO site in 1996, and actually before the Val d'Orcia was made a UNESCO site. So it came first, and it was recognized as being this architectural wonder. And, we visited Pienza a number of times over the years, and again, marveled at the views it offers of the Val d'Orcia. And
so gorgeous.
The best viewing is behind the cathedral. I mean, your jaw will literally fall open, and you will wonder how it's possible that this is normal for many to live in such a place in such beauty. There are many cute bars and cafes behind the Duomo where you can enjoy a pricey aperitivo, but you're paying for that amazing view. Or you can do a less expensive option and bring your own panino for, lunch and have a drink sitting on a little picnic bench there. But after gawking at the views and taking a million photos, then move on to explore the city. The main sites include the Piazza Pio II, the main piazza where the cathedral as well as a number of palaces stand, and another very charming drinking well. You can tour the Piccolomini Palace. It has to be done as an organized tour, and you can see the rooms of the palace, and it has an amazing, beautiful courtyard with gardens, and it perfectly frames the views of the countryside. Now, the Pienza Cathedral is also there, and it is free to the public, and it was really beautiful to stroll through when we were just there recently, and it has a crypt below it for those interested in seeing an ancient church is down there, artifacts, and some drainage tunnels. So we didn't go down there, but that is an option. So then after checking off the key sites, the only thing left to do is stroll the streets, shop, and snack. On our last visit, I challenged us to stroll up and down every single street, and it took all of 2 hours. I mean, that just shows how small of a town that it is. But it's lovely. And, doing that walk, we found a couple of tucked away piazzas and gardens that offer some quieter views and a place to relax. So make sure to look for those. But outside of the views, our favorite activity in Pienza is to sample and buy cheese. Pienza is world-renowned for its pecorino cheese, which is made from sheep's milk. It's delicious, and it has different ages and flavors. My favorite is the pecorino al tartufo with truffles. And there are many deli shops where you can stop in and ask to sample it, or you can enjoy it at a restaurant with a tagliere or charcuterie board. And if you want even more of a cheese-based experience and more amazing views, you can drive outside of Pienza to either Podere il Casale or another shop called Cuguzi. They offer tours of their cheese-making process, a restaurant, and some beautiful picnic areas.
That was great.
It was wonderful. Now, the final point to make about Pienza is their main event, which naturally revolves around cheese, the Fiera del Cacio, which takes place in early September. Now, the players roll a round of cheese around a pole in the main square. Say that 3 times fast.
Players roll around the cheese around the pole on the main square.
I can only imagine what that looks like. And again, we're going to have to go check this out next fall because we missed it this year.
Yeah, we did. Okay, well, there's the last one. Next up is Montepulciano.
Yes. Now, Montepulciano is about 20 minutes west of Pienza. So you're kind of getting the picture here. We're in Montepulciano. Drive 20 minutes west, you hit Pienza. Drive another 20 minutes west, and you're in Montepulciano. And for us, the name of Montepulciano is synonymous with Brunello wine, which was always our primary motivation for visiting. We've been visiting there for over 20 years, and in between our visits, we've had a lot of wine shipped to us.
Yeah. Yep.
Expensive wine, I have to say.
Yes.
Montepulciano is another beautiful hill town, and while similar to Montepulciano in many ways, it has less than half of its population at about 6,000 people. And once you've driven up into the town, it's also a bit flatter and more spread out than Montepulciano. Once in the town, again, one of its key attractions is the view that it offers of the Val d'Orcia. Here you get the hills and vineyards growing Sangiovese grapes, plus some more wooded areas to the south of the town. It's beautiful. And Montepulciano's main landmark is its fortress. It sits just outside of the center, and it was built in 1361 by the Sienese. It's still very impressive and very well preserved. You can climb and walk on top of its walls for an amazing 360 view of the area. We just did this finally. Again, I'm not sure what took us so long to go vertical and climb these things.
I know.
I don't know if the kids slowed us down or why we didn't think or we just didn't know. So
I will get to it in a little bit why, but go on.
Well, I'm just going to point out to everybody that look for places to climb and get these amazing views of the countryside. It only took us 20 years to do so. And I do want to point out the fortress has a terraced garden behind it that offers an amazing view of the sunset. We were there kind of right as the sun was going down, one of our visits, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So the reason why we never did go up is because the fortress has an enoteca. There's a wine shop. So in that wine shop...
So are you saying you were distracted by the wine?
Yeah, of course. So that wine shop has an amazing collection from the local wine, which Montepulciano is known for the Brunello or the Rosso di Montepulciano, which is made of the Sangiovese Brunello grape. And so we went there a lot of times with friends. We did a tasting either inside or outside. I enjoyed more the outside one.
Yeah, sitting in the courtyard was beautiful.
And, it came with il taglieri, with some meats and cheeses and all that. It was so spectacular. And then my friend Sergio, the sommelier in there, he's so knowledgeable, and I really enjoy every time I go there and I see him, and he always recommends a new wine for me. So
well, and he just knows, I feel like, every single winery in the area and was kind enough to share his favorites with us. So we're going to have to make our way through each and every one of them.
Yes, we should.
Tough job.
Anyway, that's all I have to say about the Vinoteca, Enoteca alla Fortezza.
And the wine tasting. Okay. So once you've had your wine, then head into town and find the main square, which is called the Piazza del Popolo. Located there is the Palazzo dei Priori with a medieval clock tower, which is actually very well preserved, and many other medieval buildings like the Loggia with the arches. Once there, continue strolling through the streets of Montepulciano. Montepulciano is known for its linens and many local products, though I think it has more wine stores than any other type of building, to be honest.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have a wine tasting at the Fortezza, there's many other places where you can stop in and do so.
For sure.
And of course, there are many churches and a couple of museums to visit, as well as a beautiful park at the north side of town that offered great views and a place to relax. Final point to make about Montepulciano is its big festival. It's called the Sagra del Tordo, the Feast of the Thrush, which is a wild bird. And it's on the last Sunday of October. So of all these three events that I've talked about, we finally got to go to one.
We did.
And we visited kind of later in the day and were able to enjoy some of the food stands, but we did miss the main parade and events. And similar to Montepulciano's event, the Contrade, the neighborhoods compete in an event, this time archery. And in the evening, each Contrade holds dinners and has celebrations. And I think throughout the week, a lot of different events. So next year, we're going to make a point to participate in all of these festivals, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah. I just want to mention, and this is off script because they are always listening to our podcast. We met with our friends, Stefano and Cara. So a shout out to them. And they were gracious enough to show us around and to show around their new home that they just purchased in Montepulciano. So
yes, it was lovely.
Okay.
Really enjoyed that day.
All right. Well, so these were just 3 out of the many towns in the Val d'Orcia, but we can't go through all of them. What else do you want to share with our listeners about visiting that region, Tanya?
Well, we've talked about the views a lot and our favorite hill towns, but I think another key experience either here in the Val d'Orcia or other areas of Tuscany is to spend time in the countryside itself, not just driving through it. You know, the heart of Tuscan culture is about farming, and the food, wine, and olive oil it produces for the region as well as the country and the world, to be honest. And the landscape is such an inspiration for so much of the art that you'll find in churches and in art galleries throughout the region. So spending time out in the countryside will really help you connect to what makes Tuscany Tuscany. Its land, fields, and produce, as well as the people that work the land. It's a life and a passion for them, and it's one of my favorite parts about visiting. Ways that you can participate in the country is to visit wineries or an agriturismo for a wine tasting and lunch or a cooking class. Or you can stay at an agriturismo if you have the time.
Well, wait a minute. So can you explain what an agriturismo is?
Yes. An agriturismo, other than being a complicated word to say, is basically agri for agriculture, turismo for tourism, and it's a working farm that also accommodates guests. So a hotel. Some of them are quite rustic and they have animals and, a true working farm. And others are more resort-like with pools and spas and on-site restaurants. And their agriculture is primarily wine and olives and...
Yeah. If I can say something about that, it goes back to what used to be 600 years ago. People used the Via Francigena, right? Stopping farms, asking for food, a place to stay. And now this agriturismo actually exploded maybe late 80s. It came back to life. So a lot of farms that were not active anymore, they transformed those farms into agriturismos to survive.
Yes. And they're beautiful. I mean, they have, renovated farmhouses and barns, and they're quaint and they're beautiful. And they've got a lot of, stone architecture. They're just cozy.
Yeah.
And, while you're there, it's the perfect place also to go hiking and do biking in the region. And lastly, Tuscany has a lot of bagni or thermal springs to offer. Now, we have yet to experience them, but it's on our list as there are many near the Val d'Orcia and more, throughout Tuscany really, but we want to experience it. One of the key ones that is always on social media is Saturnia.
Yeah.
So I want to go check this out and see if it really is that pretty or if they're all AI enhanced.
Anyway, it's clear that the Val d'Orcia has a ton to offer to tourists, and that explains why it's popular. And we haven't seen everything yet. But let's talk about living here in the Val d'Orcia. We lived for a month just outside of Montepulciano. What can we say about that, Tanya?
Well, I think you can probably already infer from our conversation that we love the Val d'Orcia, and I've really enjoyed living here for many of the same reasons that we pointed out that it's an amazing place to visit. For me, it's the countryside and the connection to nature that resonates the most with me and endears it to me. For the place that we stayed at, our Airbnb, I loved that the view out our window was the skyline of Montepulciano on one side.
That was beautiful.
And the olive groves and the hillside on the other side of the house. It just was amazing to wake up every day and have those views. It was so special. And then we had more of those views when we went on a walk. Like our simple walk of the day was we'd find ourselves looking at vineyards or olive groves or walking into town. And it was a short walk to get there, 2 kilometers. We were enjoying our favorite sandwich or walking, through the shops and the different alleys. I really fell in love with the town. It has a lot to offer. The people were very friendly, especially once you demonstrated wanting to get to know them, that you weren't just a passing through tourist and buying something and leaving. So it was easy to feel a connection to the community, and it had that small town feel to it. We also spent a lot of time at wineries and agriturismos, and the people were so friendly and passionate about what they do, and the views and the whole experience were just really pinch me moments. It was dreamy.
Yeah, definitely.
So loving that so much, it's like the big question is this a place where it's great to live? And, are there any downsides to living in the country? And, we are still asking ourselves many of these questions, like, as much as we love the countryside, Will we miss being in the hustle and bustle of a larger city like Pistoia and all that it had to offer on a daily basis? Will the small towns seem too small after a while? Will the tourism bother us? Like, we are here in the fall when things are a little bit slower, but what would it feel like in June when it's at the peak season?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a key thing to point out in this area of Tuscany is that you are dependent on a car, and that can be, challenging at times, and it might be frustrating to be 30 minutes from a train station when we want to do other travel or need to get to the airport. So, we loved the quiet and the remoteness overall, but will it become too quiet and too remote?
But on the other side, if you have a car, you can enjoy the whole Val d'Orcia pretty fast. Or you can get to the autostrada very easily from Montepulciano. It's like 20 minutes and you hit the autostrada, the main one. So I think overall when we're, to give advice about is the area a great place to live or not, really comes down to personal preference of, are you a city person or a country person? And what is more important to you 80% of the time? Because are you going to spend 80% of your time in the city and use 20% to escape and go out to the country and enjoy the peace and quiet of the country? Or do you want 80% of your time to be in the countryside with its views and escape 20% of the time to bigger cities to get that taste of culture and energy? Exactly.
So we don't know the answer to that quite yet ourselves.
No. Well, I do have an idea, but I think that with time, it will tell us. Right, Tanya?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I think that we talked a lot about our main topic today, Tanya. Val d'Orcia is beautiful, as we know. Now, as usual, we conclude with tips from Tanya. Tips from Tanya.
Yes, thanks, Davide. Let's move on to a couple of tips that came to mind as we were working on the episode. First, I want to say that when visiting the region of Tuscany, consider spending some time in the countryside. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but if you're staying in a city such as Florence, definitely work in some day trips. But if you can, try to stay in a hill town or an agriturismo. It's such a great experience. You won't regret it. The only downside for some people is that you will need to rent a car or be willing to hire a car service, as the countryside is not as accessible by train. Siena is the one exception.
Yeah.
But then you'll still need to do day trips from Siena out into the countryside. So car isn't very important.
Okay.
Secondly, really make an effort to slow down and try to spend enough time in the countryside so you can relax and just take it in. No, that's not always possible on your first trip, but maybe on your second. And I actually have 2 repeat clients next year, and both said their only regret last time was not being able to stay longer in Tuscany. So they're coming back to fix that.
Yeah.
Not surprising, right?
No.
You will be back, trust me. And lastly, wine and food is so important here. So make it part of your experience and be sure to find authentic restaurants and agriturismos to enjoy the local dishes and products, such as a bistecca fiorentina. So delicious steak.
Yes.
Now, we just had a Sunday lunch at a local favorite restaurant, and I really love being able to participate in this gathering of families. So food and wine is very much a part of this Tuscan culture.
Mm-hmm.
So put some time into thinking about those plans.
Wow. Well, thank you once again for listening to us and for being a part of this first year in production. We greatly appreciate it that you are listening from all over the world.
Yes, and we hope you enjoyed learning about our second location and living experiment in Tuscany. It's really fun to be able to share it with others who want to visit or maybe even live here. And I want to remind you of our Facebook group, Experience Italy with Friends, where you can join in on the conversation and more tips about visiting and living in Italy.
So, well, this is our last episode of 2024, Tanya.
Yes, we're going to take some time off to enjoy the holiday with family that will be coming over to visit us. But we'll be back in 2025 after we're settled into a new, more permanent home. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Stay tuned to find out where we land.
Okay. And we want to wish you a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Enjoy the time with friends and family to discuss a future trip to Italy. Right, Tanya?
Yes, we hope to hear from many of you.
All right. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Ciao.
Ciao a tutti.
Buon Natale.
We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.